When Sarah Bennett arrived in Medicine Bow as a mail-order bride, she thought her dreams of a frontier life were over. Rejected for being too sickly, she became another name on the growing list of brides sent back east. But Sarah had something the others didn't. A chance encounter with Dr. James McKinnon, the town's unconventional pharmacist. Known for mixing traditional medicine with frontier herbs, his unusual methods have made him an outsider. Now he sees in Sarah's illness an opportunity to prove his treatments work. As he helps restore her health, something unexpected begins to heal in both their hearts. Could a rejected bride and an outcast doctor hold the key to revolutionary frontier medicine? The October wind swept across Medicine Bow's main street, rattling the painted letters on McKinnon's Pharmacy and Sundries. Sarah Bennett pulled her threadbare shawl tighter, the rejection letter crackling in her pocket like autumn leaves. The morning stage to Cheyenne and then east to Boston would leave in 3 hours. She was expected to be on it. "Another one heading back," whispered a woman outside the mercantile. "Poor thing looks like a strong breeze might carry her away." Sarah's shoulders straightened despite the familiar tightness in her chest. 6 years of teaching in Boston's crowded schoolrooms had left her with chronic breathing troubles, but she'd managed well enough until now. Until Thomas Wheeler had taken one look at her pale complexion and declared her unfit for ranch life. Inside his pharmacy, Dr. James McKinnon watched the scene unfold as he recorded the day's observations in his leather-bound journal. His latest entry detailed the successful treatment of Martha Chen's recurring fever using a combination of traditional willow bark tea and a poultice made from local prairie sage. The margins were filled with carefully sketched botanical drawings and notes on proper harvesting times. "Dr. McKinnon?" His assistant, Jenny Henderson, called from the front counter. "Mrs. Peterson's here for her tonic." James closed his journal, tucking it into the pocket of his worn leather vest. At 35, he cut an unusual figure for a frontier pharmacist. Clean-shaven where most men wore beards, his dark hair slightly too long, and his clothes a curious mix of Eastern refinement and Western practicality. The townsfolk had long since grown used to his peculiarities, even if they didn't fully trust his methods. "Good morning, Mrs. Peterson." He smiled warmly at the elderly woman. "How's that cough?" "Much improved, thank the Lord. And you?" She clutched a small brown bottle. "Though Reverend Mills still says I ought to see a proper doctor in Cheyenne. As long as the treatment helps, that's what matters." James began preparing her refill, carefully measuring herbs into his mortar and pestle. His eyes drifted to the window again, where Sarah Bennett stood frozen in indecision. He'd seen her type before, mail-order brides sent back east, deemed too delicate for frontier life. But something about her bearing caught his attention. The way she held herself spoke of quiet determination rather than defeat. Shame about that young lady. Mrs. Peterson followed his gaze. 7th one this season declared unfit, though Mr. Wheeler might have done her a kindness. Ranch life's hard enough with strong constitution. James made a non-committal sound as he ground the herbs. Through the window, he could see Sarah Bennett cough into her handkerchief, trying to be discreet. His trained eye noted the duration and force of it, the way she steadied herself afterward. Not consumption, something else. He recorded his observations in quick, efficient shorthand on a scrap of paper torn from his journal. Subject displays signs of chronic bronchial inflammation, possible environmental factors, no signs of advanced deterioration. Potential for treatment with modified Anderson protocol? "Here you are, Mrs. Peterson." He handed over the fresh bottle. 3 drops in water, morning and night. "Bless you, Dr. McKinnon." She tucked the bottle into her bag. "You may have strange ways, but they work better than anything those Cheyenne doctors prescribe." After she left, James found himself drawn to the window again. Sarah Bennett had moved to a bench outside the hotel, her carpetbag at her feet. She was reading something, the rejection letter most likely, with reddened eyes but a set jaw that spoke of determination. "Jenny," he called to his assistant, Bring me the reference volume on respiratory ailments, and my case notes from last spring, the Carson family treatment. If he was right about the nature of her condition, there might be hope. Not that she knew it yet, sitting there with her future crumbling around her. But James McKinnon had built his practice on seeing possibility where others saw only weakness. He opened his journal again, dipped his pen, and began to write. October 15th, 1885. Potential new case presents intriguing opportunity to test modified treatment protocols. Subject demonstrates ideal indicators for experimental approach combining Eastern and Western methodologies. The bell above the door chimed. Sarah Bennett stood in his doorway, handkerchief crushed in one trembling hand, steel in her spine despite the tears in her eyes. "I'm told you're the doctor who works miracles," she said softly. "I pray that's true because I have nowhere else to go." James McKinnon had learned long ago that silence often revealed more than words. He watched as Sarah Bennett settled into the chair beside his examination table, her fingers instinctively tracing the worn leather binding of a Bible in her lap. Not just any Bible, a family one, by the look of its well-loved pages and the pressed herbs peeking out between its leaves. "Miss Bennett," he began, keeping his voice gentle, "before we discuss your condition, may I ask about those herbs you're carrying?" Surprise flickered across her face. Most people didn't notice such details, but James had built his practice on observation. Sarah opened the Bible carefully, revealing delicate dried flowers and leaves pressed between its pages, each labeled in a feminine hand. "My grandmother's remedies," she explained, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. "She was known for her healing throughout our county in Massachusetts. People said she had the touch." James leaned forward, genuinely interested. "May I?" She hesitated only briefly before passing him the Bible. He handled it with reverence, recognizing the treasure it was, not just for its spiritual content, but for the generations of medicinal knowledge preserved within. "Yarrow for bleeding," he murmured, examining the specimens. "Elderflower for fever, and this—" He paused at a particular page. "Wild thyme for breathing troubles. She used it to help me as a child." Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to her chest. "The attacks were worse then," James nodded, making notes in his journal. "And when did they return?" 2 years ago. The Boston winters." She paused, fighting another cough. "The schoolroom where I taught was damp, coal smoke everywhere. By spring I could barely manage the stairs." He continued his examination with methodical care, noting every symptom. The whistling sound when she breathed deeply, the slight blue tinge to her fingernails, the way her pulse raced with even minimal exertion. But what interested him most was her grandmother's Bible, with its carefully preserved knowledge. "Your grandmother," he said, examining a particularly well-preserved specimen of echinacea. "She combined these with traditional medicines." Sarah nodded, some of her tension easing. "She worked with our town doctor. He respected her knowledge, even if others—" She trailed off, but James understood. He'd faced similar prejudices. "Miss Bennett," he closed his journal deliberately, "what I'm about to propose may sound unusual, but I believe your condition is treatable. Not just manageable, treatable. But it will require trust, time, and a willingness to try methods that others might question." Her eyes met his, hope warring with skepticism. "Mr. Wheeler said my lungs make me unsuitable for frontier life, that the altitude alone—" "Mr. Wheeler," James interrupted gently, "is not a medical professional, and with all due respect to his judgment of ranch wives, he's not qualified to determine your capacity for healing." Sarah's fingers tightened on her Bible. "The stage leaves. In 2 hours? Then we have time to discuss options." He pulled his chair closer, opening his journal to a fresh page. "Tell me more about your grandmother's treatments, and in return, I'll share some discoveries I've made about local herbs that might surprise you." The next hour passed in intense discussion. Sarah described childhood remedies while James took detailed notes, comparing her grandmother's methods. With his own findings, they discovered surprising overlaps, plants that grew in both Massachusetts and Wyoming, similar preparation techniques, compatible theories about combining traditional and natural medicines. It's not just about treating symptoms, James explained, showing her his sketches of local medicinal plants. It's about understanding how the body heals itself and providing the right support at the right time. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jenny poked her head in. "Doctor, stage is due in 30 minutes. Sarah straightened, reality crashing back. "I should stay." The word came from James before he could consider its implications. "Miss Bennet, I'm proposing a partnership of sorts. Your grandmother's knowledge, combined with my research, we could help others like you. And in the process, prove that being sickly isn't a death sentence out here." She studied him for a long moment, her Bible clutched close. Outside, they could hear the stage driver calling for passengers. "What exactly are you suggesting, Dr. McKinnon?" 3 months. Give me 3 months to prove my methods work. You can assist in the pharmacy, share your grandmother's remedies, learn about local treatments. If you're not significantly improved by then, he gestured to the window, the stage runs east every Tuesday. Sarah looked down at her grandmother's Bible, then at James's journal full of similar healing wisdom. Beyond the window, medicine. Bo waited, a town that had already judged her too weak to stay. But here, in this room full of bottles and herbs and possibility, someone finally saw her strength instead of her illness. 3 months, she agreed softly, but I have conditions of my own. Sarah's conditions turned out to be exactly what James had hoped for, a sign of the sharp mind behind her fragile appearance. She wanted to understand everything, the reasoning behind each treatment, the origin of every herb, the purpose of each preparation method. As he led her to his private consultation room that afternoon, he couldn't help but smile at her determined expression. "Before we begin," he said, reaching for a leather-bound volume from a locked cabinet, "there's something I need to show you." The book was well worn, its pages thick with pressed specimens and detailed drawings. Unlike his professional journal, this one bore no title on its cover. "What is it?" Sarah asked, leaning forward despite herself. 7 years of learning from those who knew this land's healing properties best. He opened the book carefully. The local tribes, particularly the Arapaho and Shoshone, they understood things about these plants that no Eastern doctor ever could. Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the careful documentation, detailed sketches of plants, precise, notes on preparation methods, and observations written in multiple hands, some in English, others in native languages with translations below. "You learned from them directly." James nodded, turning to a particular page. "When I first arrived, I was like any other Eastern-trained doctor, convinced I knew everything worth knowing. Then I watched a Shoshone healer cure a case of mountain fever that had stumped every white doctor in the territory." He paused, remembering. It was a lesson in humility, and the beginning of my real education. The pages revealed a sophisticated understanding of local plants and their medicinal properties. Sarah recognized some from her grandmother's Bible, but many were entirely new to her. Each entry included not just the plant's properties, but detailed information about when and how to harvest it, which parts to use, and how to combine it with other treatments. "Most Western doctors," James continued, "they see these methods as primitive, but look here." He pointed to a detailed drawing of a flowering plant. "This grows nowhere else in the world. The tribe spent generations learning its properties. That's not primitive. That's centuries of careful observation and documentation passed down through oral tradition." Sarah traced the careful drawings with a gentle finger. "And you think these methods could help me?" "I think," James said carefully, "that combining this knowledge with what we know from your grandmother's remedies and modern medicine gives us possibilities that no single tradition could offer alone." He turned to another page, where a pressed specimen lay carefully preserved. "This is what the Arapaho call breath of the mountains. It grows only above certain elevations. Most Western doctors would say that altitude makes your condition worse. But what if the cure grows precisely where they claim you can't survive? Sarah leaned closer, examining the dried plant. How does it work? That's where Western medicine helps us understand. James pulled out his professional journal, opening it to recent observations. Under the microscope, we can see how it affects the small airways in the lungs, combined with traditional preparations. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jenny entered with an apologetic look. Dr. McKinnon, Reverend Mills is here. He heard about Miss Bennet staying. The implications were clear. News traveled fast in Medicine Bow, and not everyone would understand their arrangement. Sarah straightened in her chair, that same steel entering her spine that James had noticed earlier. "Show him in, Jenny," James said calmly. "Miss Bennet and I were just discussing some fascinating botanical research." As Jenny left, Sarah gave him a questioning look. "You're not concerned about what he'll say? About a patient consulting with her doctor?" "No." James closed the book of native remedies carefully, but left it on the table between them. "Though, perhaps we should discuss how to handle the inevitable questions about your decision to stay." Sarah's hand moved to her grandmother's Bible, which hadn't left her side. "I've spent my whole life being judged as too weak, too delicate. I won't apologize for choosing to fight instead of retreat." James felt something warm settle in his chest at her words. Before he could respond, heavy footsteps approached the consultation room. Their quiet moment of shared understanding would have to wait. "Well then," he said softly, "shall we face our first challenge together?" The look Sarah gave him held equal parts trust and determination. Whatever Reverend Mills might say, James knew in that moment that he'd found something rare, a partner who understood that healing required not just medicine, but courage to defy expectations. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fresh ledger lay open on James's desk, its leather cover still stiff, pages crisp and unmarked. His pen hovered over the first entry. "Patient Sarah Bennet. Day 1 of Modified Mountain Breath Protocol." "You'll record everything?" Sarah asked from her chair by his examination table. Morning light streamed through the window, highlighting the pallor of her skin. "Every detail," James confirmed. "Symptoms, treatments, responses, even setbacks. Especially setbacks. They often teach us more than successes." He began the day's entry. Initial symptoms: severe chest tightness, audible wheezing upon mild exertion, pulse elevated at 92. Patient reports difficulty sleeping due to nocturnal breathing difficulties. The door chimed as Jenny arrived with their morning preparations: a pot of steaming water, fresh herbs, and the carefully measured powder from James's native medicine stores. Sarah watched intently as he combined them according to precise proportions. "The steam carries the medicine deeper," he explained, arranging a tent of clean linen over the pot. "Breathe slowly, don't force it." Sarah leaned forward, letting the medicated steam envelop her face. Her first deep breath triggered a harsh cough, but James noticed something important. The cough was looser, more productive than before. "Good," he murmured, making another note. "Your body's beginning to fight back." Over the next hour, he recorded every observation in meticulous detail. Sarah's breathing gradually eased, her shoulders relaxing as the treatment took effect. But when she tried to stand afterward, her legs buckled slightly. "Dizzy," she gasped, gripping the table edge. James steadied her with a gentle hand, already reaching for his pen. "Expected reaction. The altitude combines with the treatment. To affect blood flow, we'll adjust tomorrow's dosage." "You're not concerned?" Her voice held more curiosity than fear. "On the contrary," he showed her his notes. "See here. Your body's responding exactly as the Arapaho medicine man predicted. The initial weakness means the treatment's reaching deep enough to make real changes." Sarah studied the ledger entries with obvious interest. "You note everything with such precision." "Medicine is both art and science," James replied, adding another observation. The art comes from generations of wisdom, your grandmothers, the tribal healers. But the science, that requires careful documentation. Every detail matters. The rest of that first day set their pattern. Sarah helped in the pharmacy between treatments, her professional manner impressing even skeptical customers. James recorded everything: her color after exertion, the changing quality of her cough, her gradually strengthening appetite. By evening, the first page of the ledger told a story of small victories and careful adjustments. Their final treatment session ended with Sarah managing a deeper breath than she had all day. "Tomorrow will be harder," James warned as he made his last notes. "The real healing often feels like getting worse before getting better." Sarah nodded, wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. "Like teaching," she said thoughtfully. "The students who struggle most at first often end up learning the deepest lessons." James paused in his writing, struck by the comparison. "You miss it, don't you? Teaching." "Yes." She touched the ledger gently. "But perhaps there are other ways to help people learn." The next few days proved James right about the challenges. Each morning, he added new observations to the ledger. Day 2. Patient experiences increased congestion. Counterintuitive but promising sign of airways beginning to clear naturally. Adjusted evening dose accordingly. Day 3. First major setback. Severe coughing spell after breakfast. But note significant improvement in breath sounds once episode passed. Day 4. Patient insisted on continuing work despite obvious fatigue. Remarkable spirit, but warned about importance of rest during initial stages. Compromise reached. Will teach Jenny proper organization of herb stores while seated. By the end of the first week, the ledger told a story beyond mere medical observations. Between the careful notes on symptoms and treatments emerged a portrait of determination. Sarah's growing understanding of the medicines, her gentle way with anxious patients, the gradual strengthening of trust between doctor and patient. "Your breathing's already changing," James noted on the 7th evening, comparing his earliest entries to the latest measurements. "Listen." He held his stethoscope for her to hear her own breath sounds. Sarah closed her eyes, concentrating. "Less whistling," she said, "and the tightness. It's different, not gone, but fighting back," James finished, adding her observation to the day's entry. He hesitated, then wrote something else. "Patient demonstrates remarkable insight into her own healing process. Consider expanding her role in preparation of medicines." Sarah, reading over his shoulder, touched the words lightly. "You mean that?" "Every word." He met her eyes. "I record nothing in this ledger that isn't absolutely true." The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibility. Then the door chimed, announcing a late customer. Sarah straightened, automatically reaching to tidy her hair. "I'll help Jenny," she said, but paused at the door. "Dr. McKinnon? Thank you for seeing me as more than just a patient." James waited until her footsteps faded before making his final entry of the week. Note: patient's greatest medicine may be her own determination to heal. Traditional doctors overlook such factors at their patient's peril. Frontier medicine or frontier madness? The Medicine Bow Weekly Gazette's headline glared up from James's desk, its fresh ink still leaving traces on his fingers. Below it, the article pulled no punches. "Concerns grow as Dr. James McKinnon, our town's unconventional pharmacist, takes on his most questionable case yet." The recently rejected mail-order bride, Sarah Bennett, deemed unsuitable for frontier life due to chronic illness, has taken up residence at his establishment. Sources close to the situation report strange medical practices, combining traditional medicine with native remedies and old wives' tales. While Dr. McKinnon's unusual methods have found support among some locals, many question whether false hope is being offered to those desperate for solutions. James set the paper aside as Sarah entered the consultation room, and something in his expression must have warned her. "Bad news?" she asked, settling into her usual chair. "Nothing unexpected." He reached for his stethoscope, then paused. Though, perhaps we should discuss... A deep, productive cough interrupted him, but this one was different. Sarah's eyes widened as she expelled something that had been trapped in her lungs, possibly for months. "Quick!" James said, reaching for a clean glass jar. "Spit into this!" Sarah complied, still catching her breath, but this time her breathing afterward was clearer than he'd ever heard it. "That sound!" she whispered, pressing a hand to her chest. I can breathe!" James held the jar up to the light, examining its contents with professional interest. "Just as I hoped. The mountain breath treatment is finally breaking up the old congestion. Here, listen to your lungs now." He helped her with the stethoscope, watching her face as she heard the difference. "The whistling, it's almost gone. This," he said, carefully labeling the jar with today's date, "is what healing sounds like. Your airways are finally clearing themselves naturally." Sarah's eyes fell on the newspaper. "But not everyone believes in healing like this, do they?" James sat back, considering his words carefully. Progress always faces opposition. When I first started incorporating native medicines, some called it witchcraft. When I suggested that fresh air might be better for consumption than locked rooms, I was labeled dangerous. And now, Sarah gestured to the paper, they think you're giving me false hope. What matters is what you think. He pulled out his ledger, turning to the newest page. "Are you ready for your examination?" She straightened in her chair, anew, confidence in her bearing. "I'm ready to prove them wrong." The examination revealed dramatic improvements. Clear breath sounds in areas that had been congested for years. Strong, regular pulse, pink returning to her cheeks and lips. "Remarkable," James murmured, making detailed notes. "At this rate..." The door burst open, revealing Thomas Wheeler himself, red-faced and brandishing his own copy of the Gazette. "This has gone far enough, McKinnon." Sarah rose to face him, and James noticed she didn't reach for support, despite the sudden excitement. She stood straight and steady, her breathing calm. "Mr. Wheeler," she said evenly, "what perfect timing. I believe you should see this." She held out the stethoscope. "Listen for yourself. Those lungs you declared unfit for frontier life? They're healing." Wheeler glanced between them, clearly thrown by her confidence. "Now see here..." "No, sir," Sarah interrupted firmly. "You see here, Dr. McKinnon's methods work, and I intend to help improve it, not just for myself, but for others you might have dismissed too quickly." James watched the exchange with growing admiration. The woman standing her ground wasn't the same one who'd stumbled into his pharmacy 2 weeks ago. This Sarah Bennett radiated strength, not despite her illness, but because she'd chosen to fight it on her own terms. Wheeler sputtered, but before he could respond, Mrs. Peterson appeared behind him. "Is it true, Doctor? You found a way to help her?" Other faces appeared in the doorway. Jenny, several regular customers, even the Gazette's young reporter, pencil already flying across his notepad. James stood, moving to Sarah's side. "Would you like to tell them, Miss Bennett? It's a breakthrough after all." Sarah took a deep breath, the kind she hadn't been able to manage in years, and began to explain. Her voice carried clearly through the room, every easy breath a testament to their success. The reporter's pencil scratched frantically. Tomorrow's headline, James suspected, would tell a very different story than today's. The Medicine Bow Town Hall had never been so crowded. James studied the meeting minutes from his seat in the back row, noting how carefully the town clerk had worded the agenda: discussion of medical practices and professional standards within city limits. Sarah sat beside him, her spine straight, dressed in a borrowed blue dress from Jenny that gave her some much-needed color. 3 weeks of treatment had worked visible changes. Her breathing was steady, her movements more confident. But tonight would test more than her physical progress. Mayor Harrison called the meeting to order with 3 sharp raps of his gavel. First item of business, Dr. James McKinnon's unconventional medical practices. The word hung in the air, like smoke. From his position, James could see the town clerk's pen scratching across the official record book. Meeting commenced, 7 p.m. Discussion of Dr. McKinnon's healing methods. Reverend Mills stood first, his black coat severe in the lamplight. We must consider the moral implications, mixing Christian medicine with pagan remedies. If I may, Sarah interrupted, her voice clear and steady. Heads turned, some nodding encouragingly, others frowning at her boldness. What's Christian about rejecting God's creations? Every herb, every flower, aren't they all divine gifts for healing? The clerk's pen hesitated, then dutifully recorded, Miss Sarah Bennett speaks in defense of natural medicines. Thomas. Wheeler pushed to his feet. This isn't about religion, it's about standards. Professional medical standards that kept me sick for years. Sarah stood now too, pulling out a small notebook. I've documented every improvement since starting Dr. McKinnon's treatment. Would you like to see the numbers, Mr. Wheeler? The measurements? The scientific proof? James watched the clerk recording everything, knowing these minutes would become part of the town's official history. Miss Bennett presents evidence of medical improvement. Mrs. Peterson's voice rose from the crowd. My arthritis hasn't pained me in months, thanks to the doctor's remedies. My Tommy's fever broke when nothing else worked, called another voice. The clerk's pen flew. Multiple testimonials in support of Dr. McKinnon's methods. But Wheeler wasn't finished. And what of his unusual arrangement with Miss Bennett? A single woman living above his pharmacy, working alongside him? What kind of example? The kind that saves lives. James finally spoke, his quiet voice gutting through the murmurs. He stood, pulling out his treatment ledger, every improvement, every setback, every detail documented with scientific precision. Miss Bennett isn't just a patient. She's becoming an expert in frontier medicine herself. Her grandmother's knowledge, combined with local remedies and modern science, is creating something revolutionary. The clerk wrote steadily, Dr. McKinnon defends medical apprenticeship of Miss Bennett. Revolutionary? Wheeler scoffed. It's dangerous, unregulated. What's to stop anyone from claiming they can cure? Knowledge, Sarah cut in. Study, careful documentation. Dr. McKinnon has spent years learning from every available source. Eastern doctors, native healers, experienced herbalists. He doesn't guess. He observes, tests, proves. James noticed young Dr. Harris from Cheyenne, who'd slipped in late, leaning forward with obvious interest. The Territorial Medical Board would want his report on this meeting. Mayor Harrison cleared his throat. Perhaps a demonstration. Miss Bennett, would you be willing to show us this improvement you claim? Sarah smiled. Without hesitation, she walked to the front of the hall, climbed the stairs to the podium, 32 steps that would have left her gasping 3 weeks ago, and began to speak. Her voice carried to every corner, clear and strong. Without a single wheeze, the clerk's pen recorded, Miss Bennett demonstrates remarkable physical improvement, speaking at length without respiratory distress. James watched faces in the crowd change as Sarah spoke, explaining in simple terms how the treatments worked, how they documented everything, how they combined the best of all medical traditions. Even Wheeler's scowl softened slightly when she described helping other patients with similar conditions. We're not asking for blind faith, she concluded. We're offering documented proof, hope backed by science, and a chance to make Medicine Bow known for more than just its name. The clerk made the final entry, motioned to continue discussion at next meeting. Vote 15 in favor, 3 opposed. Meeting adjourned 9:15 p.m. As the crowd dispersed, Dr. Harris approached them. Interesting methods, McKinnon. The medical board might want to hear more. James nodded, but his attention was on Sarah, still standing, tall at the podium. She'd done more than defend their work. She'd shown everyone exactly why he'd seen such strength in her from the beginning. The town clerk closed the record book carefully, its pages now holding the first official recognition of their unconventional partnership. Tomorrow, there would be more battles. But tonight, they'd made history in more ways than one. The box caught Sarah's eye while she was organizing McKinnon's back office. A simple wooden chest, worn smooth with age, half hidden behind medical texts. She might have passed it by, but a letter had slipped partially out, yellowed with age, addressed to Dr. James McKinnon, Massachusetts General Hospital. "Find anything interesting?" James's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, watching her with an unreadable expression. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" She started to push the box back. "No." He crossed the room slowly. "Perhaps it's time someone knew." He lifted the box carefully, bringing it to his desk. "These might help you understand why I chose this path." Inside lay dozens of letters carefully preserved. James selected one from the bottom, its paper crackling with age. This was the first. "From my supervising physician at Massachusetts General, 1875. Sarah took it gently, reading aloud. "Young man, your condition makes a medical career impossible. The demands of hospital rounds alone would tax your system beyond endurance. I recommend a less strenuous profession." She looked up sharply. "You were ill, chronic bronchial weakness, much like yours." He smiled faintly. "Why did you think I recognized your symptoms so quickly?" He pulled out another letter, this one written in a flowing native hand with English translations between the lines. This one changed everything. From Chief Medicine Bear of the Arapaho, he saw me struggling to breathe during a supply run to their reservation and offered to help. Sarah read pieces of the translation. "The white man's medicine is strong, but sometimes the old ways heal what new ways cannot. Come learn if you wish to breathe with the strength of mountains." "I spent 6 months with them," James said softly. "Learning, healing. When I returned to Medicine Bow, I could outride most cowboys. But more importantly, I understood that true healing doesn't belong to any one tradition." He spread more letters across the desk, correspondence with herbalists, reports from medical colleagues, notes from grateful patients, each one a piece of his journey. "The medical board nearly revoked my license when I started combining treatments. Some colleagues still won't speak to me." He picked up a more recent letter. "But then I receive things like this. My daughter breathes freely for the first time in her life. God bless your strange ways, doctor." Sarah touched the letters gently. "Why are you showing me these now?" "Because you deserve to know why I fought so hard to keep you here." His voice softened. "I saw myself in you that first day. The same struggle to breathe, the same determination not to let it define you." Their eyes met across the desk, strewn with his past. Something shifted in the air between them, understanding deepening into something more. "There's another reason," he continued, drawing out one final letter. "This arrived yesterday from Dr. Harris. The Territorial Medical Board is interested in our results. They want documentation of all our combined treatments, your grandmother's remedies, the native medicines, everything." Sarah's breath caught. "They're taking us seriously?" "They're taking you seriously." He handed her the letter. "It specifically mentions your presentation at the town meeting. They want both of us to present our findings in Cheyenne." "Both of us?" She stared at him. "But I'm not a doctor. You're something just as valuable. Proof that these methods work. And more than that," he gestured to her notebooks filled with careful observations, "you understand the science behind it all. You've become exactly what I hoped, a true partner in this work." The word partner hung between them, heavy with multiple meanings. Sarah looked down at the scattered letters, each one a step on the path that had led them here. "Your letters," she said slowly, "they tell the story of how you became who you are. Just like my grandmother's Bible tells our family's healing history. And now we're writing a new chapter together." His hand covered hers where it rested on the letters. "If you're willing." The touch sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with medicine. When she met his eyes again, she saw more than a doctor looking back at her. And for the first time, she let herself acknowledge that he'd become more than just her healer. "I think," she said softly, "I've been willing since that first day you saw me as more than just another sickly bride." Outside the window, Medicine Bow's evening bustle continued, unaware of the moment unfolding in the quiet office. But in that room, surrounded by letters that traced one man's journey from patient to healer, two people who'd been dismissed as too weak for frontier life found strength in each other. The official summons arrived on gilded letterhead, its formal language barely masking its underlying threat. The Wyoming Territorial Medical Board hereby requires Dr. James McKinnon to appear and defend his unconventional medical practices. Particular attention will be paid to treatments administered to one Sarah Bennett, whose case has drawn significant concern. Sarah found James in his office, the summons spread before him alongside a stack of medical journals. His usual calm demeanor showed signs of strain. "They're not just questioning my methods anymore," he said without looking up. "They're challenging my right to practice medicine at all. Because of me." Sarah moved closer, reading over his shoulder. "Because of what you represent." He gestured to their treatment ledger. "Every improvement you've shown threatens their entire understanding of frontier medicine. And now others are asking for the same treatments." Indeed, their waiting room had grown crowded lately. Word had spread about Sarah's recovery, bringing others deemed too weak for frontier life. Each success added to their documentation and to the medical establishment's unease. "Dr. Richmond from Cheyenne arrived this morning," James continued, pulling out another letter. "He's demanding access to all our records. Says he's concerned about dangerous experimentation." Sarah's hand went to her throat, where a silver locket now hung, James's gift after their first month of success. Inside, she kept a pressed specimen of the mountain breath herb that had helped save her life. "What does he want to see?" "Everything. Your initial examination records, the treatment protocols, even your grandmother's remedies." James ran a hand through his hair. "He's particularly interested in how we're combining traditional medicines with native treatments." "But that's our breakthrough," Sarah protested. "The way different traditions work together." "Exactly, and if it works," he met her eyes, "it challenges everything they've built their reputations on." A knock interrupted them. Jenny poked her head in, looking worried. "Dr. Richmond is back. He's brought the sheriff." Sarah straightened her spine, a gesture James had come to recognize as her preparing for battle. "Let them in." Dr. Richmond swept into the office, every inch the distinguished physician in his fine coat and gold watch chain. Sheriff Taylor followed, looking uncomfortable. "Dr. McKinnon." Richmond's voice dripped condescension. "I trust you've received the board's summons." His eyes fell on Sarah. "Ah, and the patient in question. Miss Bennett is my assistant now," James said calmly, "and a valuable contributor to our research." Richmond's eyebrows rose. "Research? Is that what you call this backwater experimentation?" Sarah stepped forward, her breathing steady and strong. "Would you like to see our results, Dr. Richmond? Every treatment documented, every improvement measured. Or perhaps you'd like to examine me yourself, compare my condition now to the medical reports that deemed me unfit for frontier life." The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. Richmond flushed. "Young woman, your individual case proves nothing. These folk remedies are saving lives," James interrupted. He pulled out their latest case files. Mrs. Peterson's arthritis, the Carson children's whooping cough, Tommy Henderson's fever, all treated successfully with combinations of traditional and native medicines. "Anecdotal evidence," Richmond scoffed. "The board requires proper scientific—" "Like this?" Sarah retrieved their microscope and prepared slides. Detailed analysis of how mountain breath extract affects bronchial tissue. Or these. She spread out pages of chemical analysis, comparisons of active compounds in both Eastern and native medicines. James watched with pride as she systematically presented their evidence. Every argument Richmond raised, she countered with documentation. The sheriff looked increasingly impressed. "And you learned all this from him?" Richmond demanded. "From Dr. McKinnon, from my grandmother's healing traditions, from native wisdom, and from careful observation." Sarah's voice was firm. "True. Healing doesn't care about medical board politics. It cares about results." The sheriff cleared his throat. "Seems to me they're doing good work here, Doc. Town's healthier than it's been in years." Richmond's face darkened. "The board will hear about all of this. Every irregular treatment, every deviation from accepted practice. Good, James stood. Because we'll be there too, with every piece of evidence, every success story, every scientific proof that medicine can evolve beyond artificial boundaries. After they left, Sarah sank into a chair, trembling slightly, not from weakness now, but from tension finally released. "That wasn't just about our methods, was it?" she asked quietly. James took her hand, his thumb brushing over knuckles that were no longer blue from poor circulation. "No, it's about change, and some people fear change more than illness itself. Then we'll show them there's nothing to fear." She squeezed his hand. Together. The summons still lay on his desk, its golden letterhead catching the late afternoon light. But somehow it looked less threatening now. They had truth on their side, and each other. The idea started with Mrs. Peterson, of all people. She arrived at the pharmacy early one morning, her arthritis-gnarled hands clutching a sheet of paper covered in signatures. "Read it," she insisted, pressing it into Sarah's hands. "Every name. Is someone you two have helped?" Sarah unfolded the document carefully. At the top, in neat schoolteacher's script, she read, "We, the undersigned citizens of Medicine Bow, do hereby attest to the positive effects of Dr. James McKinnon's medical treatments. Furthermore, we petition the Wyoming Territorial Medical Board to recognize the value of combining traditional medicine with frontier wisdom." The signatures filled both sides of the page. Ranch hands, shopkeepers, mothers, miners, dozens of names, each with a personal note about healing received at McKinnon's pharmacy. "Martha Chen's fever broke after 3 days of your herbs," Sarah read aloud. "Tommy Henderson breathes clear for the first time in his life. Baby Rose saved by native cough medicine when nothing else worked." James appeared from the back room, drawn by the emotion in her voice. "What's all this?" "The truth," Mrs. Peterson declared firmly, "and there's more coming. Reverend Mills is bringing signatures from his congregation, and Sheriff Taylor's riding to the outlying ranches today." Sarah handed James the petition, watching his face as he read. His usual professional composure cracked slightly at the outpouring of support. "You've done more than heal bodies," Mrs. Peterson continued. "You've given hope to people who thought they were too weak, too sick, too old to survive out here." She patted Sarah's hand. "Just look at our Miss Bennett here. From rejected bride to respected healer. If that's not God's work, I don't know what is." The bell above the door chimed. Jenny hurried in, carrying more pages. "The miners' wives sent these, and Mr. Chen is translating for the Chinese railroad workers. They want to add their stories too." Throughout the day, more people arrived. Thomas Wheeler's own ranch hands came, talking about injuries healed by McKinnon's poultices. The station master described how Sarah's breathing exercises had helped his asthmatic daughter. Sarah and James worked between visitors, preparing medicines and treating patients, but now their usual routine felt different, weighted with meaning as each person they helped reminded them why their fight mattered. "Look at this," Sarah said softly, showing James a newly arrived page from Chief Medicine Bear himself. He writes that combining healing traditions honors both peoples and makes the medicine stronger. James touched the native leader's strong signature. "He taught me that wisdom knows no boundaries, that healing comes from understanding, not authority." Their eyes met over the growing stack of testimonials. Something had shifted between them since Richmond's visit, a deepening of trust into something warmer, more personal. "James," Sarah began, then hesitated. It was the first time she'd used his given name, but before she could continue, Reverend Mills burst in, his own collection of signatures clutched triumphantly. "Even the doubters are coming around. When they saw little Mary Watson walking again after your treatments." He trailed off, noticing the moment he'd interrupted. "Perhaps I should come back." "No," Sarah said quickly, professional mask sliding back into place. "Every signature matters. Every voice needs to be heard." They worked late into the evening, organizing the testimonials. Jenny helped sort them by condition treated, creating a comprehensive record of their success. The stack grew impressive. Undeniable proof of lives changed. "It's not just about us anymore, is it?" Sarah observed as they finished. James shook his head. "It never was. It's about proving that healing can come from unexpected places. That strength often hides in those deemed too weak." He looked at her then, really looked, seeing not the sickly bride who'd first entered his pharmacy, but the strong, capable woman she'd become. She'd grown into her new role naturally, her teacher's gift for explanation blending perfectly with her grandmother's healing wisdom. "Sarah," he said softly, echoing her earlier use of his first name. "Whatever the medical board decides, know that you've already changed medicine in Medicine Bow. You've shown everyone that true healing knows no boundaries, professional or personal." She met his gaze steadily, her breathing clear and strong. In the quiet pharmacy, the petition pages rustled between them, filled with names of people they'd helped together. But the most important changes couldn't be captured in signatures. They lived in the trust that had grown between a rejected bride and an unconventional doctor, a trust that was blooming into something deeper with each passing day. Outside, the sun set over Medicine Bow, painting the sky in shades of healing herbs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patients, new battles with the medical establishment. But tonight, surrounded by their community's support, they could face it, all with hope and with each other. The Territorial Medical Board's chambers in Cheyenne were designed to intimidate. Dark wooden panels loomed above the witness chair where Sarah now sat, facing 5 stern-faced doctors. Their official review document lay before them, its blank, pages waiting to record either vindication or condemnation. "Miss Bennett," Dr. Richmond's voice carried from the center seat, "please describe your condition when you first arrived in Medicine Bow." Sarah sat straight, her voice clear and steady. "I suffered from chronic bronchial weakness, aggravated by years teaching in poorly ventilated Boston schoolrooms. Multiple doctors had declared me unfit for frontier life, and now you claim to be cured through Dr. McKinnon's unusual methods. Not just cured." Sarah gestured to James, who brought forward their documentation. "We've documented every step of my recovery, but more importantly, we've proven these methods can help others with similar conditions." The youngest board member, Dr. Thompson, leaned forward with interest. "These chemical analyses of your mountain breath compound, they're quite detailed. We believe in combining scientific rigor with traditional wisdom." Sarah opened their research journal. "Each treatment is carefully tested, its effects documented under microscope and in clinical observation." Richmond frowned. "Yet you utilize remedies from questionable sources, native medicines, folk cures. Knowledge isn't questionable simply because it comes from an unexpected source," Sarah countered. "The Chinese railroad workers' use of willow bark was dismissed as superstition until Western medicine discovered aspirin held the same properties." A murmur ran through the assembled observers. James, watching from his seat, saw several board members exchange thoughtful looks. Dr. Anderson, the eldest member, spoke for the first time. "Your background was in teaching, not medicine. How can you claim expertise in these matters?" Sarah smiled slightly. "My grandmother was a healer who worked alongside doctors in Massachusetts. She taught me that observation and documentation are the foundations of understanding. Dr. McKinnon has expanded that education into a systematic study of how different medical traditions can work together." She opened her grandmother's Bible, now filled with additional notes and specimens. "Every treatment we develop is tested, recorded, and verified. We don't work on faith alone. We work on evidence." The review document was filling with notes. As Sarah continued her testimony, she described case after case: children breathing freely after years of struggle, chronic pain eased by combined treatments, fevers broken by medicines that bridged cultural divides. "And what of Dr. McKinnon's role in all this?" Richmond pressed. Some suggest he's allowed an unqualified assistant too much influence. Dr. McKinnon, Sarah said firmly, has done what every great doctor should do, recognize that healing wisdom can come from many sources. His willingness to learn from native healers, to respect traditional knowledge while applying scientific method, has saved lives that conventional medicine had abandoned. James found himself holding his breath as Sarah met each board member's eyes in turn. She was magnificent, poised, knowledgeable, and passionate about their work. Dr. Thompson spoke again. These results are impressive, but what guarantees that others could safely replicate your methods? That's exactly why we've documented everything so carefully. Sarah gestured to their complete records. Every treatment protocol, every measurement, every observation. We're not asking for blind trust. We're offering proof. The board members huddled together, speaking in low voices. When they turned back, Richmond's expression was reluctant but resigned. The board requests your complete treatment protocols for further study. Additionally, he glanced at his colleagues, we would be interested in a formal presentation of your methods at the next territorial medical conference. Sarah's eyes found James's across the chamber. They'd done more than defend their work. They'd opened a door for others to follow. One final question. Dr. Anderson's aged voice carried surprising strength. What do you say to those who still doubt that frontier medicine can advance beyond conventional wisdom? Sarah stood, her breathing strong and clear in the hushed chamber. I say they should remember that I was deemed too weak to survive here. Instead, I found not just healing, but a way to help others heal. The frontier doesn't make us weaker. It teaches us to find strength in unexpected places. The official review, when complete, would run to many pages, but its essence could be summed up in the final line, penned in Anderson's shaky hand. Innovation in medicine comes not from clinging to tradition, but from having the courage to seek healing wherever it may be found. The partnership agreement sat between them on James's desk, its fresh ink gleaming in the morning light. McKinnon and Bennett, practitioners of frontier medicine. Below the header stretched carefully worded clauses that would forever change the nature of their relationship, professionally at least. Equal shares, James explained, watching Sarah's face as she read. Equal responsibility, equal authority in all medical decisions. Sarah's fingers traced the letterhead. You're certain? Some might say a former mail-order bride isn't qualified. Some might also say a woman deemed too sickly for frontier life couldn't become one of its most effective healers. He smiled. Yet here you are, proving them wrong every day. The morning sun streamed through newly washed windows, highlighting recent changes to the pharmacy. Fresh paint brightened the walls, and neat shelves displayed their expanding collection of medicines, Eastern remedies beside native herbs, all carefully labeled in Sarah's precise hand. There's something else, James continued, drawing out another document. The medical board's official recognition of your qualifications as a frontier medicine practitioner. First of its kind. Sarah took the certificate with trembling hands. How did you? Dr. Anderson championed it. Said it was time medicine recognized that healing knowledge comes in many forms. He paused. It means you can practice independently, if you choose. The unspoken question hung between them. Sarah set both documents down carefully. Is that what you think I want? To leave? I think, James said slowly, that you deserve every opportunity your skills have earned, including the freedom to choose your own path. Sarah stood, moving to the window that overlooked Medicine Bow's Awakening Street. So much had changed since she'd first stood there, clutching a rejection letter and fighting for breath. My path, she said softly, has led me here. To this work, to this partnership. She turned back to him, to you. The moment stretched. Between them, heavy with possibility. Then the front bell chimed, their first patient of the day arriving. Dr. McKinnon? Miss Bennett? Jenny's voice carried from the front. Mrs. Chen's here with the baby, and Sheriff Taylor wants to know if you've made more of that liniment for his shoulder. Sarah reached for her apron, but James caught her hand. "Sarah, before we start the day, are you sure? About the partnership?" She squeezed his fingers. "Gently. I came to the frontier looking for a new life. Instead, I found something better, a way to help others build their lives here, and someone to share that mission with." James's eyes softened. "Even if some still disapprove." "Especially then," she smiled. "We've never taken the easy path, have we?" He returned her smile, reaching for his own apron. "No, but we've made it a better path for others to follow." Together, they headed out to face their first day as official partners. The agreement on the desk would formalize their arrangement, but the real partnership, the one built on trust, respect, and growing love, had been forming since that first day Sarah refused to take the stage back east. As they greeted Mrs. Jen and her infant Sarah caught James watching her with an expression that had nothing to do with professional admiration. Soon, they would need to discuss that other kind of partnership, but for now they had work to do, healing to accomplish, lives to improve, and a new chapter of frontier medicine to write together. The letters arrived daily now, each one carrying stories of hope and desperation. Sarah sorted through the morning's mail, organizing them into neat piles on the newly expanded correspondence desk. One envelope in particular caught her attention, postmarked from Boston, the careful handwriting eerily familiar. "James," she called softly, "I think you should see this." He appeared from the examination room, where he'd been treating a miner's persistent cough. The letter she handed him bore the letterhead of Massachusetts General Hospital, the very institution that had once told him he was too weak to practice medicine. "Dear Dr. McKinnon and Miss Bennett," she read aloud, "news of your success in treating chronic respiratory conditions has reached us here in Boston. We have a patient, a young medical student with symptoms similar to those you both once suffered." More letters spilled from their organized stacks. A rancher's wife in Dakota Territory with crippling arthritis. A schoolteacher in Oregon whose weak lungs threatened her career. A group of miners from Colorado seeking treatment for altitude sickness. "They're all like me," Sarah murmured. "People told they couldn't survive out here." James picked up another letter, this one from a native. "Healer in Montana. And like this, traditional healers wanting to share knowledge, to combine methods as we have." The pharmacy's walls had begun to fill with maps marking the origins of their correspondence. Pins showed where their treatments had spread, where other practitioners had begun adopting their methods. String connected communities where their influence had taken root. Jenny brought in another stack of mail. 2 more rejected brides asking if they can come. "And Dr. Thompson from the medical board wants to know if you'll write a formal paper on the mountain breath protocol." Sarah touched one of the map's pins, a small town in Kansas where they'd helped establish a similar practice. "We're going to need more help." "Already arranged," James smiled. "Remember Mary Watson, the girl who learned to walk again? She's asked to apprentice with us. Says she wants to learn medicine the way you did." Their waiting room had grown crowded. Lately, local patients mixed with travelers who'd come specifically seeking their treatments. Sarah moved among them with practiced ease, her once labored breathing now strong and sure as she gathered histories and symptoms. "Miss Bennett?" A thin woman rose shakily from her chair. "I came from California. They said you'd understand. About being told you're too weak." Sarah took the woman's trembling hands in hers. "Come into the consultation room. Tell me everything." Later, after the day's patients had gone, Sarah and James sat reviewing their case notes. The woman from California had shown marked improvement just from their initial treatment. Her letter would join the growing collection of success stories. "I had a thought," Sarah said, arranging the day's correspondence. "These letters, they're not just requests for help. They're documentation. Proof that our methods work across different conditions, different territories." James nodded slowly. "A body of evidence that can't be dismissed as mere anecdotes." "Exactly. If we organize them properly, track the outcomes." She pulled out a fresh ledger. We could create a genuine study of frontier medicine, something that bridges all the traditions we've drawn from. Her eyes shone with the same passion for teaching she'd once brought to her Boston classroom. James watched her begin categorizing the letters, creating a systematic record of their growing influence. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Dr. Anderson's asked us to help establish guidelines for recognizing other frontier practitioners, to create a way for traditional healers to gain official standing." Sarah looked up from her work. "Understanding the significance, we could help others like us. People with healing knowledge who've been dismissed by conventional medicine. People like a certain mail-order bride who turned out to be exactly what frontier medicine needed." Their eyes met across the desk piled with letters from people whose lives they'd touched. In that moment, both remembered their own first meeting, how far they'd come from doctor and patient to equal partners in pioneering a new way of healing. Outside, the setting sun painted Medicine Bow's sky in shades of possibility. Their work was no longer about proving themselves. It had become something larger, a movement that could change medicine across the territories, bringing hope to those who'd been told they didn't belong on the frontier. Sarah picked up the letter from Massachusetts General, a smile touching her lips. "Shall we show Boston how the West heals its own?" The marriage license application lay blank on James's desk, its official letterhead stark against the worn wood. He'd gotten it from the county clerk that morning, but now found himself staring at its empty lines with uncharacteristic uncertainty. Sarah was in the front of the pharmacy, teaching Mary Watson the proper preparation of their mountain breath compound. Her voice carried clearly, confident and strong, so different from the breathless woman who'd first entered his pharmacy half a year ago. "The proportions must be exact," she was saying. "Medicine is both art and science, but the measurements, those are always precise." James smiled, recognizing his own words transformed by her teacher's gift for explanation. He picked up his pen, then set it down again. After all their unconventional choices, perhaps this one shouldn't be traditional either. He reached instead for their treatment ledger, the first one, containing the daily record of Sarah's initial recovery. Its pages chronicled not just her healing, but the growth of their partnership, their shared mission, their gradual transformation. From doctor and patient to equals in both medicine and... "James!" Sarah stood in the doorway, concern crossing her features. "Is everything all right? You've been distracted all morning." He closed the ledger carefully. "Actually, I was hoping we could review a case together, a rather personal one." Her professional demeanor emerged instantly. "Of course. What are the symptoms?" "Well," he began, fighting a smile, "the patient presents with recurring episodes of accelerated heartbeat, particularly in the presence of a certain colleague. Symptoms include difficulty concentrating, persistent thoughts of shared future plans, and a marked desire to convert a professional partnership into a more permanent arrangement." Sarah's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She moved closer to his desk, noticing the marriage license half hidden beneath their medical documents. "That sounds serious," she said softly. "What treatment would you recommend?" James stood, coming around the desk to take her hands in his. "I thought perhaps we might conduct a long-term study, one that combines our professional success with personal happiness." "A lifetime study?" Her voice trembled slightly. "If you're willing." He drew her closer. "We've proven that the best medicine comes from combining different traditions, different strengths. Perhaps the best life does too." Sarah's free hand went to the silver locket she still wore, the one containing their first successful mountain breath specimen. "I came here looking for a husband, found healing instead, and now you've found both," James finished. "If you'll have me." She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. "The medical board might not approve. A doctor marrying his former patient. The medical board," James smiled, "has learned not to underestimate us. Besides, you're not my patient anymore. You're my partner in every way that matters. I'd just like to make it official in every way possible." He reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a small box. Inside lay a ring unlike any Sarah had seen. a delicate silver band set with tiny pressed flowers from their healing herbs, preserved under crystal. "James," she breathed, "is that—" "Mountain breath blossoms, preserved like your grandmother's specimens. I had it made in Cheyenne." He held it out to her, a symbol of everything that brought us together, healing, hope, and the courage to find new paths. Sarah touched the ring gently, then looked up at him with a sudden laugh. "Did you document this plan in your medical journals too?" "Actually," he pulled out their latest ledger, opening to a fresh page. "I thought we might record it together, the beginning of our next chapter." She took the pen from his hand, dipped it in ink, and wrote in her clear hand. "Case resolution. 2 healers, once deemed too weak for frontier life, find strength in each other and a shared mission to help others do the same." Then she turned to him, eyes shining. "Yes, to all of it. To continuing our work together, to building our life together, to showing the world that the greatest healing comes from love." James slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close. Outside, they could hear Mary Watson greeting a patient, Jenny organizing their correspondence, the usual bustle of their thriving practice. But in that moment, their world narrowed to just the two of them, no longer doctor and patient, no longer even just partners, but 2 people who had found healing in love, and love in healing. The blank marriage license still lay on the desk, waiting to be filled, but the real testament to their union was already written in the pages of their medical ledgers, in the lives they'd touched, and in the new way of healing they'd pioneered together. The first threatening letter arrived on a bright autumn morning, anonymous but clear in its intent. "Your unnatural mixing of medicines corrupts proper medical practice. A woman's place is in the home, not playing at doctor. Cease this charade, or face the consequences." Sarah found it slipped under the pharmacy door, the paper cheap, but the handwriting educated. She was about to show it to James when Jenny burst in, face flushed. "Someone's been spreading rumors," she gasped, "saying, 'Your medicines are dangerous. Mrs. Peterson's daughter won't let her come for her arthritis treatment anymore. And the mining company's new doctor is telling workers to stay away.'" James emerged from the back room, another letter in his hand. This one bore an official letterhead: "Notice of investigation into unauthorized medical practices." "It's not just local," he said grimly. "Someone's been writing to medical boards across the territories, challenging our methods." Sarah straightened her spine, that same steel-strong posture she'd developed during their fights with the first medical board. "They're trying to frighten away our patients and our supporters." James handed her the investigation notice. "This mentions concerns raised by prominent medical professionals about unauthorized persons administering treatments." They both knew who they meant. Despite Sarah's official recognition as a frontier medicine practitioner, some still saw her as an interloper, a former patient who'd overstepped her bounds by becoming a healer herself. The door chimed. Thomas Wheeler stood there looking uncomfortable but determined. "Thought you should know. There's talk at the Cattlemen's Association. Some are saying your engagement is inappropriate. A doctor marrying his patient, practicing medicine together." "Former patient," Sarah corrected firmly, "and fully qualified practitioner as recognized by the Territorial Medical Board." "I'm just passing along the warning." Wheeler shifted uneasily. "There's money behind this. Eastern doctors worried about their methods being challenged. They're painting you as dangerous revolutionaries." James moved to Sarah's side, his and finding hers. "They tried that before. We proved them wrong. This is different." Wheeler gestured to the threatening letter. "They're not just attacking your medicine now. They're attacking your relationship, your reputation, everything you've built." Sarah squeezed James's hand, drawing strength from his presence. "Then we'll defend it all, together." After Wheeler left, they gathered their staff: Jenny, Mary, Watson, and 2 new apprentices drawn by their growing reputation. Sarah held up the anonymous letter. "Someone wants to frighten us," she said clearly, "to make us doubt ourselves, our methods, our right to heal. They think that because I came here as a mail-order bride, because I learned medicine through unconventional means, I'll be easily intimidated. James watched her with pride as she continued, but they've forgotten something important. Every person in this room was told they couldn't do something, that they were too weak, too unconventional, too different to succeed, and every person here proved them wrong. She moved to their wall of maps, showing their influence spreading across the territories. We've helped hundreds of people that traditional medicine dismissed. Every pin on this map represents someone who found healing when others said it was impossible. What do we do? Mary asked, her own story of learning to walk again after everyone had given up, making her voice fierce with determination. Sarah turned to James. Their silent communication developed over months of working together, speaking volumes. He nodded, understanding her plan. We document everything, she declared. Every treatment, every success, every piece of evidence that our methods work. We write to everyone we've helped, ask them to share their stories. We show them that trying to silence us means silencing hundreds of voices, hundreds of lives improved. James pulled out fresh ledgers. And we keep working, keep healing, keep proving that medicine is stronger when it brings traditions together instead of building walls between them. One by one, their staff nodded, determination replacing fear. The threatening letter lay forgotten as they began planning their response, not with anger or fear, but with the quiet strength that had brought them this far. Sarah and James shared a look that spoke of more than professional partnership. They'd faced opposition before, but this attack on their personal happiness made it different, yet somehow that only strengthened their resolve. They think our love makes us vulnerable, Sarah said softly when they were alone. They don't understand that it makes us unshakable. James touched her ring with its preserved healing flowers. They've forgotten the most important lesson of frontier medicine, that strength often comes in unexpected forms. Outside their window, Medicine Bow continued its daily rhythms. Inside, a group of healers, once dismissed as too weak or unconventional, prepared to defend not just their practice, but their right to love and heal in their own way. The wedding announcement in the Medicine Bow Weekly Gazette reflected their unique journey. Dr. James McKinnon and Miss Sarah Bennett cordially invite the community to witness not just the union of two hearts, but the celebration of a new vision for frontier medicine. The ceremony will combine traditional wedding customs with healing rituals from multiple traditions, symbolizing their belief that strength comes from bringing different worlds together. Sarah smoothed the newspaper clipping, now framed alongside their medical certificates and partnership agreement. The pharmacy had been transformed for tomorrow's ceremony. Herbs and flowers from their medicine garden draped every surface, their healing properties labeled in both English and native languages. The Arapaho delegation just arrived, Jenny announced, excitement coloring her voice. Chief Medicine Bear himself came, and Dr. Anderson's stage is due within the hour. Sarah nodded, touching the wedding dress hanging nearby. Instead of traditional white, she'd chosen a deep green silk that matched their mountain breath herbs, embroidered with healing plants in silver thread. Her grandmother's Bible lay ready on the ceremony table, pressed flowers marking passages about love and healing. Miss Bennett? Mary Watson appeared, carrying their newest treatment ledger. We've finished preparing the Unity Ceremony herbs. Each blend represents a different tradition of healing. The idea had come from James. Instead of lighting a Unity candle, they would combine medicines from each tradition that had shaped their practice, creating something new and powerful. Eastern pharmaceutical powders, native herbs, Sarah's grandmother's remedies, and their own frontier discoveries would join to form a unique healing compound. Perfect. Sarah checked the carefully measured portions. And the certificates for our guests? Ready. Mary held up an example, beautifully printed documents that would officially recognize the traditional healers attending the ceremony as partners in their growing network of frontier medicine. The door chimed. James entered, his eyes finding Sarah immediately. The medical board representatives just telegraphed. They're coming too, all of them. Even Richmond. Sarah raised an eyebrow. To support us or study us? Does it matter? James moved to her side. Every person who attends, whether friend or former opponent, will see what we've built. How bringing different traditions together makes everything stronger. Medicine, community, love. He trailed off as shouting erupted outside. They rushed to the window to find Thomas Wheeler arguing with a group of men in Eastern suits, representatives from the medical establishment, who opposed their methods. You can't stop this wedding, Wheeler was saying, his voice carrying clearly. This whole town stands with them. They've proven themselves 100 times over. Sarah and James shared a look of surprise. Wheeler, their original opponent, now defended them fiercely. The pharmacy filled with supporters throughout the afternoon, patients they'd healed, students they'd taught, healers from different traditions they'd united. Each brought something to add to their ceremony. Herbs, wisdom, stories of healing. As sunset approached, Sarah stood in their consultation room, now transformed into her dressing area. Her breathing was strong and steady as she prepared for the ceremony that would unite all parts of their life together. The wedding announcement had described their vision perfectly, not just a marriage, but a declaration that love, like healing, grew strongest when it embraced different traditions, when it saw strength in supposed weakness, when it dared to forge new paths. Tomorrow they would face whatever challenges came. But tonight they would show the world that the same philosophy that had revolutionized frontier medicine could also build a beautiful life, one that brought people together instead of driving them apart. Through the window, Sarah could see Medicine Bow gathering for the ceremony. Former patients stood alongside medical board members. Native healers conversed with Eastern doctors. Mail-order brides they'd helped heal chatted with ranch wives who'd once doubted them. James appeared in the doorway, his eyes bright with love and purpose. Ready to write our next chapter? Sarah took his hand, feeling the strength they'd built together. Ready to show them that love, like medicine, knows no boundaries. The acceptance letter from Harvard Medical School seemed almost impossible. We are pleased to invite Dr. James McKinnon and Mrs. Sarah McKinnon to present their groundbreaking research on frontier medicine integration at our upcoming medical conference. Of particular interest is your successful combination of traditional medical practices with native healing methods. They want us to teach their doctors, Sarah marveled, morning light streaming through the pharmacy windows. She was no longer the rejected bride fighting for breath. Now she stood confident, a silver streak in her hair matching the ring on her finger with its preserved healing herbs. James looked up from examining their latest patient records. Not just Harvard. Look at the rest. More letters spilled across their desk. Johns Hopkins, Pennsylvania Medical College, even correspondence from European medical societies. Their methods weren't just being accepted, they were being sought out. We've started something bigger than ourselves, Sarah said softly, touching a letter from a frontier doctor in Montana who'd successfully replicated their treatment protocols. Remember when they said I was too weak to survive out here? James smiled, remembering that first day. Now they're asking us to show them the strength they missed. The door chimed as Mary Watson entered, no longer an apprentice, but a full partner in their expanding practice. The new students are here, the ones sponsored by the Medical Board's Frontier Medicine program. Sarah gathered their teaching, materials, carefully documented case studies, precise treatment protocols, pressed specimens of their key medicinal herbs. Each student would learn not just the medicines, but the philosophy behind them, that healing came from bringing traditions together, from seeing strength where others saw weakness. The students filed in, a diverse group that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Eastern-trained doctors stood alongside native healers, female practitioners next to male colleagues, all united by the desire to learn their integrated approach to medicine. Begin with this, Sarah told them, opening their original treatment ledger. My own case. It shows how combining different healing traditions can transform supposed weakness into strength. As she taught, James watched with pride. Their work had grown beyond just treating patients. They were changing how medicine itself was practiced on the frontier. Each student they trained would carry their methods to new territories, helping others who'd been told they were too weak to thrive. A telegram arrived from the Territorial Medical Board, Frontier Medicine Certification Program approved. McKinnon and McKinnon methods to become standard curriculum. Congratulations on revolutionizing territorial healthcare. Sarah held the telegram close. We did it, James. We really did it. But their greatest victory wasn't in the official recognition. It was in the lives they'd touched, the barriers they'd broken, the hope they'd given to others who'd been dismissed as too weak or different to succeed. Through their window they could see Medicine Bow thriving. The town had become a center for medical innovation, drawing healers and patients from across the territories. Their little pharmacy had grown into a teaching hospital, where different traditions worked together to create something stronger than any could achieve alone. Just like their love had grown from doctor and patient to equal partners, their work had grown from treating illness to transforming medicine itself. And it all started because a mail-order bride deemed too sickly refused to accept others' limitations. In their garden, the mountain breath herbs bloomed, ready for a new generation to learn their healing properties. Above their desk hung the verification from Harvard Medical School that their methods were now being taught in the most prestigious institutions. But more importantly, in their heart, they knew they'd created something that would outlast them. A legacy of healing that saw strength in diversity and hope in unity. 1 year later, Sarah was reviewing their newly published medical manual, Frontier Medicine, an integrated approach, when Jenny's voice carried from the front of the hospital. Dr. Sarah, there's someone here you should meet. At the entrance stood a young woman, pale and breathless, clutching a familiar-looking letter. Sarah recognized the trembling hands, the determined set of jaw, the mix of fear and hope in her eyes. She'd worn that same expression herself not so long ago. Another rejection letter? Sarah asked gently. The woman nodded. They said They said the frontier would kill me, but I heard about you, about what you and Dr. McKinnon created. Here, Sarah picked up their published manual, its pages filled with proven treatments, successful cases, and the wisdom of multiple healing traditions. What's your name? Elizabeth Collins. I was supposed to marry a rancher near Cheyenne, but she gestured helplessly at her labored breathing. Miss Collins, Sarah smiled. Would you like to hear a story about another bride once deemed too sickly for frontier life? James appeared in the doorway, his presence still sending warmth through Sarah's heart. Together, they led Elizabeth into their consultation room, no longer just a doctor's office, but a place where hope and healing had transformed countless lives. As they began their examination, Sarah caught James's eye. They didn't need words anymore to communicate. In Elizabeth, they saw their legacy continuing, another chance to prove that frontier medicine, like frontier love, grew strongest when it embraced those others had dismissed. Outside their window, mountain breath herbs bloomed in the garden, where they trained new healers. Inside, their manual laid out the path for others to follow, and in their hearts, they knew that every person they helped wrote another line in the story that had begun with a rejected bride and an unconventional doctor who dared to see strength where others saw only weakness. Medicine Bow had become more than just a town. It was now a beacon of hope for anyone told they weren't strong enough to pursue their dreams. And in their growing hospital, Sarah and James McKinnon continued to prove that the greatest healing came from loving not despite supposed weaknesses, but because of the strength it took to overcome them.